Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. So for today's video, it will be a time lapse of a digital painting of my original character. I won't do a whole lot of talking for this one, as there's some imperfections here or there, and ultimately there was like a little bit of a learning curve with just figuring out how the XP pen tablet I just got worked, and also I hadn't gotten a chance to use Clip Studio a whole lot, so there was also that of just figuring stuff out. So this was a little bit of my guinea pig kind of full-on painting that I had done in Clip Studio. I was also figuring out how the recording works, so I didn't end up recording, I think, all of that line art that I did for it. And I actually realized in the future I think I'd rather just try using OBS for the recordings, just so it doesn't just do this like quick time-lapse thing, but record like the whole screen of how all the tools and everything that I'm using, because I think that might be a little bit more useful for people, just to like get an understanding, as I personally enjoy seeing what brushes, what settings and whatever people are messing around with and clicking on. I mean, this itself is not the most impressive thing, so maybe you wouldn't have learned a whole lot, but future-wise, I think I will definitely go for that instead. My only gripe about this painting is I'm definitely gonna go back to it at a later date, but I kind of had to put a pin on this one and call it finished and even post this video just to not mull around with it anymore for the time being, as I have a million other drawing ideas in my head and I really wanted to work on other ones or something that other than this one. And so it's when you have something sitting around there, you kind of feel guilty almost. So calling it done and finished for now at a certain state of sort of complete, but definitely could use a lot of improvement, I think it's good enough. Does anybody else feel like their digital painting drags on more, or are you the type where you'd find your traditional paintings would actually drag on forever and you would take forever to complete? For me, it's actually my digital paintings, which I'll sit and let sit around for. This one has sat around for 4 months. That's kind of why I'm putting a pin on it right now. I just needed this sucker done for the time being, and just to sit and let it stew and figure out all the stuff that I was like missing, because staring at something for too long, you kind of like miss everything. And yeah, also sometimes you have to like switch up the screens you're staring at, because I feel like on the XP pen tablet it looked a lot more contrasty and a little bit better, so yeah. But again, overall, I'm pretty impressed with myself going through all the effort of that dragon and stuff. But even he can use some improvement after the fact. Yeah, I think my favorite part and the most complete part is probably the patterns, which technically were patterns I created way before, like 6 years ago. So that's not really that much to brag about. But yeah, I was happy I figured out how you put the patterns in and set all of that stuff up, because that was definitely fun and tricky. I'm not gonna lie, but I was also putting it off because I think I mentioned at the start of this, or at least at some version of what I recorded, another problem with this piece was I didn't have a final vision in mind, which probably is why it took 4 months to, bit by bit work on calls with friends or something on it, trying to figure out what I was gonna do. And here, as you can see, I'm actually working on a layer over top of the line art and realizing I think that was the way I was gonna go, because originally I think I just wanted it to be an entirely just glowy line art dragon, but I had already done the line art and it was kind of rough and it was very thin, and I know there's a way I think to expand lines and stuff like that in Clip Studio, which is very cool, but in this instance it wasn't the greatest line art. It was kind of rough, so I thought I'm just gonna kind of paint the dragon this kind of glowy skin color, but not like a transparent glow, but you know, just like physically there and just kind of glowy, if that makes sense. Basically kind of like this. Painting each individual scale, or I guess I was kind of doing this mix of doing it roughly in general spots and then trying to paint individual scales and shading and everything like that. I probably still need to work on that as well, but I find it actually quite relaxing doing all of the painting of the scales individually, as opposed to just creating a scale brush, as I've seen other people do for certain things like snakes and dragons and whatever else will have scales. But for myself, I don't know, I kind of enjoy it. It's therapeutic almost sometimes doing a repeated kind of pattern by hand when it's things like this. Then there was like, I believe at a certain point when I finally was satisfied with the character and the dragon to some point, I realized the background was a bit sketch. Like that vase and the carpet just were the roughest color in ever, and I flattened it with the line art, I believe, or something. I did a whole lot of weird rushed business before or something, so I was trying to fix that up and clean it up as best as I could. Honestly, the shading of that vase I think needs to be much more increased because it's like too light and weird and like sticking out. Very weird choice, but and the carpet is like too bright as well in my opinion. I should have just gone with a very dark green to blend in mostly with the carpet and not stand out as much. And then there's the case of his shoes should kind of, I think I adjusted it a little bit at some point. But as one of the speech bubbles had mentioned, yeah, the reason I definitely want to do OBS is when you're doing any zoomed in details, like I spent a lot of time on the face, to be honest, and it's all been like for naught and showing it off. And adjusting, if anybody has like, you know, that issue where I'm sure everybody always freaks out over their character's face the most. But you know what? I'm quite happy with the face at the very least, and some of it, again, a lot of contrast and stuff probably could have been improved if I thought out everything to begin with, like the way the shadows and the lighting was going to hit the most. So this is a do as I say, not as I do moment, but definitely plan out your artworks and how the lighting and the shadow is exactly going to go, and just try and envision it a little bit better just to really help out the final focus. And the final product. If you've gotten this far, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, I hope you can drop a like. If you want to continue watching more of my videos, consider subscribing. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.